We will often find the need to style our components. An easy way to do that is to use one of the style frameworks. A very popular one, the most used by far, is Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and navigate to Bootstrap. And as you can see here, this is the landing page. And if we go to the documentation, you can see there that there are 4 broad categories: layout, content, components, and utilities. And we will use a component here to illustrate how to use Bootstrap. We will first create a standalone HTML page, and then we will create a one within React. So let's go ahead and navigate to home simply to get a hold of the style sheets. And as you can see here, we could pull in the bare bones style sheet, or we could do a lot more. The difference being if you just want simply the look and feel of CSS, or if you want to use components that have JavaScript built into them. Now let's go ahead and create a page. We will call it index. I'm going to go ahead, actually let's call it Bootstrap. And there is our page. Let's go ahead and put in some of the boilerplate for HTML. Now we're going to go ahead and add a style sheet. So I will go ahead and enter here link. And as you can see there, I get the placeholder. I'm now going to come here and copy the style sheet. I'm going to go ahead and add it to the page. And I believe it gave me the entire tag. So I'm going to go ahead and view the entire line, and as you can see that all of that is that link plus the tag that I got directly from Bootstrap. Now at this point we're ready to start adding content, so let's go ahead and go to the documentation. Then I'm going to use one of the components. I want to use a card. I'm going to go ahead to the section and I'm going to navigate and scroll down the page to one I like. I'm going to go ahead and use this one that has a header and a body here. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that onto my body of HTML. I'm then going to go ahead and drag and drop that file onto the browser. This is the bootstrap.html. So here is the file. And as you can see there, we get our card. Now we could use a container. So we can enter a div here with the class container. And we're going to wrap our div. And this will simply give us a little padding around the container. And I'm going to go ahead and indent this just so that it's easier to see. And as you can see there, we have a little bit of padding around our div, around our card. Now let's go ahead and do the same for React, and we'll start off with the simplest way. In React we'll have a standalone page, meaning not a full-blown app. Let's go ahead and go to the React documentation. I will go to React, add React to a website, and I'm going to scroll down here to view the source code, and this is the way to create a standalone page, meaning that we're bringing in all of the plumbing of React by using script tags, much like the way we just use a tag to bring in styles. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I will create a new file. I'm going to go ahead and save it first. I will save it as react.html. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste the content that I just got from the React documentation. Now the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add the Bootstrap styles. I'm going to go ahead and copy from the first example that we did. I'm going to simply paste here, and I will write myself a comment simply to be explicit. This will be Bootstrap CSS. Then below it, I'm going to add one more thing. I'm going to add Babel because I'm going to go ahead and create a component in a moment. and I will need Babel. And as you can see there, this is not the way to do it in production. This is simply to illustrate a very simple page that doesn't have all of the scaffolding that the projects do. So I'm going to go ahead and add that line there that simply brings in Babel. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of changes. The very first one is I'm going to change this to card because I will call the file that we will create in a moment card.js. And I will target this div here, but I want to call it root. So before we go any further, let's go ahead and review. What I did is I copied some HTML that I got from one of the React examples. Inside of this page, I have the Bootstrap Styles, I have Babel, then down here I have the libraries for React. In addition to that, I have one div that I'm going to go ahead and target, as you can see there. It's called root. And then now I'm going to go ahead and write this file that's called card.js. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. I'm going to go ahead and save, and I will call it card.js. I'm first going to go ahead and add the card. As you can see, I have very much the same syntax as I did before. I'm then going to go ahead and create an element from that card. And I will then add this to the page by using the render method, as you can see there, and get element IID by ID to target the root div that we put in the HTML page. This one here. Let's see, where is it? It's over here. So let's go ahead and drag and drop the file onto the browser. And I'll go ahead and open up my developer tools to see why I did not get the card. And as you can see there, I get some cryptic message, but it turns out that the reason why this error occurs is because you need to indicate to the browser what type of script you're going to be evaluating. And in this case, we need to tell it that it's going to have Babel or syntax that Babel needs to interpret. And we also want to defer until the document has loaded. So if we go ahead and reload the page, we now get a different error. And this has to do with serving the file directly from our file system. And it indicates that we now need to load it from an HTTP server. And so I'm going to go ahead and fire up my HTTP server now. And now that I've gone ahead and done that, locally, my address is localhost 8080 react.html, which is the name of the file. And I'm going to go ahead and hit return. And as you can see there, now we get our nice card within a React page. Now let's go ahead and create our React app with all of the tooling. So for this, we'll go ahead and enter, first let me move to my desktop here. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a React app, and I'm going to call it big, just simply to note that this one's going to have everything. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. Now that that has installed, let's go ahead and clean up our work area. And then we'll go ahead and drag and drop our new application here. And as you can see there, we have the typical structure of a React app. And now we need to go ahead and add Bootstrap to this project. And so we're going to do that through the command line now. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my command line. We're then going to go ahead and use npm to install Bootstrap. And as you can see there, that's what I'm doing. Now by doing that, we have the files. Now let's go ahead and open up index.js, and we will add in index.js the CSS file. And we do that by entering import. And then we're going to enter the path to our file. So we'll start off with Bootstrap, then distribution. And if you dig in through the node modules, you will be able to see this. And here CSS, that is the directory that holds this. And then inside of it, it's bootstrap.css. Now, by doing that, CSS styles are now available inside of this application. And I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the app.js. And I'm going to go ahead and change here. This is your default landing page when you create a project. And so when you create a React application, and I'm going to go ahead and replace all of this here with the syntax for my tag. So here is the HTML for the card, and note that I'm using a container as well. Now there's one more change we need to make, and that is that we need to change class to class name. Now let's go back to the command line and move into our application, and then we can start. And as you can see there, we get, as expected, our little card. So as you can see, adding Bootstrap styles is pretty easy. I showed it originally in the HTML file standalone. It's just one line. Then we just used the syntax for the components on Bootstrap. Then we added it in a standalone page on React. And then we did it with the full React application. So go ahead and try this. There are some twists, as you can see there. You know, for example, you got to use class names once you moved into React because it's a reserved keyword. And as you move onto the full application with all the tooling, you got to do a few more steps. But ultimately, once you get through those, then you're working once again with Bootstrap, which easily gives you access to all of Bootstrap's tooling.